Hi, welcome to the Building Better podcast. We at Carlyle believe that better businesses and better investment theses come from diversity in decision making. I'm Jonathan Blank with Communications at Carlyle, and to explain diversity in decision making, I'm joined by our wonderful Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer today, Kara Helander. Kara, welcome.
Hi, Jonathan. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. I know I'm really excited for this conversation. I am sure everyone listening is as well. I've been thinking about this one all day, so really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, Carl, we would be remiss if we did not begin by acknowledging that race relations is a palpable topic around the world. Whether that's in the halls of government institutions or the kitchen room table with our family or at investor conferences like ours. With that said, you have facilitated some really inspiring conversations at Carlyle about listening to each other, standing together, and understanding unconscious bias. For our audience, can you explain some of these concepts, especially unconscious bias, and how we all can be more aware of them?
Absolutely. So unconscious bias are natural connections that our brains make to help us navigate our world. If you think about it, in any one moment, we are bombarded with a tremendous amount of information. The feeling of the clothing on your skin, the sounds that are happening next door, the visuals that might be passing by your window. And if you tried to consciously pay attention to all of that, you would simply be overwhelmed. And so unconscious bias is our brain's way of dealing with that information, helping us to sort through and see patterns. Just helps us to be more efficient in our day-to-day. But unconscious bias can also serve to blind us to some of the data that is important to see. And so that means that we have to be conscious of it, thoughtful, really pay attention so that we aren't letting some of those immediate associations our brains might be conditioned and are conditioned to make to erode the quality of our decision making. And so we spend a lot of time at Carlyle helping each other to understand how bias operates, but more importantly, the steps that we can proactively take to help mitigate that bias so it doesn't impact the quality of our decision making, be it decisions about people or decisions about investment opportunities.
Kara, the word that you just used a couple of times in connection with diversity is decisions. And I think it's important to hear your view on that. I for one, I started my career in human resources and training and development. And we talked a lot about diversity at that time. This was a number of years ago, I'm dating myself. But we didn't use the phrase diversity in decision making at that time. And you've clearly helped many of us and many firms and many industries evolve their thinking on diversity to what we now have at Carlyle of diversity in decision making. Could you explain the difference between diversity and diversity in decision making?
Sure. So let me start with the definition of how we think about diversity at Carlyle. And I think what I would say is it includes the things that you can readily see and the differences, meaningful differences that you can't readily see. And so we do have a broad definition of diversity, and that's important because we're a global organization and we're working on a global scale. And no, we can't begin to necessarily measure all of those dimensions of difference, but they exist in our people and our clients and in our marketplaces, so we have to be sensitive to them. In terms of diversity in decision making, there is abundance of evidence conducted by world-class organizations that shows that diverse teams outperform homogeneous teams. And I think what's important around that is that I'll tell you about a piece of research that's resonated very strongly within Carlyle, and our investment teams in particular. And it was done by Professor Kathy Phillips out of Columbia Business School. But what she did was she brought together diverse teams. And what she found is that those diverse teams were far more accurate in their decision making. But one of the things that was a paradox was that those teams felt less effective, and the individuals on the team were less confident in their decisions, even though they were more accurate. So, what that tells us is it's that difference of perspective. It is that set and range of ideas and insights that really leads to more accurate and better decisions. And it's that difference, that creative friction that happens with those differences that actually leads to that better outcome. So you need that diversity in decision making to ultimately come to the optimal best solutions.
I love it. I know. So as you know, I'm building a team here, and based on this, I'm going to make sure that there are those little, when there are little pauses that people give after giving an opinion, I'm going to take that as a good sign that there is a healthy tension between when we're debating very important topics and making decisions.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to, we talked earlier about equipping people to understand what are the things that they can do in their day to day to bring out that diversity in decision making. You just identified one of them. And it sounds a little, I don't know, bureaucratic, but literally keeping track of who in your conversations has contributed. And if you haven't heard from someone, invite them to speak up so that you're really getting that range of ideas and you don't have people holding back because they might be more junior or they have a different background than the rest of the team, but really seeing that as an advantage and something to amplify.
Really interesting. Kara, the decisions that we make most frequently are obviously investment decisions. Can you help everyone listening understand what they and we as investors should be looking for when it comes to other companies and organizations' practices and culture when it comes to diversity in decision making?
Jonathan, Pete Clare likes to say that he looks at a leadership team of a portfolio company, and the diversity of that team is an early indicator of how agile and forward thinking they are. It is an indicator of, are they going to be ready for our global world, digital transformation, all of the issues that are top of mind for us today? Do they have the resilience and the flexibility to manage through COVID and other crises that we have? And so I think it's about, again, it's an indicator. And in fact, our own data from our portfolio demonstrates that it is an indicator of performance. We looked at the diversity of our portfolio company boards, and after controlling for industry, fund, and vintage year, what we found was that those companies with diverse boards generate earnings growth that's 5 times faster on average. And each diverse board member is associated with a 5% increase in annualized earnings. So, yes, it's an indicator because it's an indicator that's proved out in our own experience.
As we all know, this is a chaotic world right now. But as we've discussed, there are rays of hope, and we are all working together to build better companies, to build better relationships with people, and to build a better society. Kara, what are you most excited about as we head into the end of the year?
I'm excited about the level of commitment, focus, intent that I'm hearing not only at Carlyle, among my colleagues and the leadership, and the interest in really understanding what we each can do individually and collectively to be better. But I'm also hearing that from conversations with our portfolio company leadership teams, from our LPs. look, we have a lot of challenges as a society, as a business community, but I am encouraged by the level of commitment, energy, and focus that people are making right now. And I believe that's going to be sustained. And with that sustained intention, we'll make progress.
Well, Kara, on behalf of more than 1,800 colleagues at Carlyle, I want to thank you for inspiring that energy, that focus, and that optimism. So I'm proud to call you a colleague, and I want to thank you for joining all of us on the Building Better podcast today.
Thank you.